Hello and welcome once again to another episode on the White Dog Garage YouTube channel. My name is Bob. In this episode I'm continuing my theme of putting wheels under my stationary woodworking power tools. This is my miter saw, complete on my miter saw stand, and what we're going to talk about here or show you here is putting wheels on this folding miter saw stand to make it a wheeled miter saw stand. And I welcome you to follow along. So I like to recycle things, and in my collection of junk, recycling materials, I've found a couple of wheels. Now the classic fit for putting wheels on your miter saw stand is to put them up here so that you can still fold the legs up and roll it along. That doesn't suit me because I'm usually just moving it from one area to another. So I'm going to mount my wheels there. So the loose arrangement that I see is something like this, with the frame out here, so that when you lift the end up, it rides on the wheels in this location. I'm a bit unsure as to whether to mount them square. I've seen some that mount them there, and I could put them there. I'm more inclined to go out here because there's a bit of leverage, and as you would know from the bandsaw series, making a mobile base for the bandsaw series, I've got some uneven surfaces to work across. So the basic design is put a bit of strap there with a shaft running out, holes of wool in place. It'll actually go on the other side, but it's easier to see if I put it on this side. The problem is the wheel's going to end up running at an angle like this. These particular wheels have straight roller bearings, and that's not good for a straight roller bearing. You need tapered roller bearings if you want to do that. The next thing I want to talk about is selection of the material. So this is a steel rule, as you can see, pretty flexible. If you just weld that on there, it's going to flex, and eventually it'll crack off. This is about 20 millimeters, 18 millimeters, 3/4 of an inch thick, wide, and 3 millimeters, 1/8 of an inch thick. It's also reasonably flexible. This is 25 millimeters, about 1 inch wide, and it is 5 millimeters thick, about 3/16 of an inch. Not too bad, but you need a bit of rigidity. So the one I'm actually going to go with is this one. It's 50 millimeters wide, it's 6 millimeters thick. That is about 2 inches wide and about 1/4 of an inch thick. The other thing that I'm going to do is that I'm going to set it up so it's straight, but I'm also going to give it some rigidity on the mount, which will prevent to a certain extent any flexing, and hopefully it'll last a reasonable length of time. So we're on to templating. I've cut a piece of cardboard. It's 50 millimeters wide, the same width as the strap that I'm going to use, and I have made a centre line so that I can work out the position of the wheel. The wheel itself has a diameter, gosh, I would have said, and I think I'm pretty right, I'm not pretty right. I was thinking it's 150 millimeters. It's what we want is the halfway point. Try and get that in focus for you. There we go there. Yep. 76 millimeters. That's going to be 3 inches. That is 3 inches. So it's a 6-inch wheel. So we are going to have, sometimes it's easier, because a lot of materials in Australia are really in imperial measurements only with the metric designation. Sometimes easier just to revert to imperial measurements. So I'm looking here at 3 inches off the bench, and I'll then look at the position I want to have for the wheel, and that looks like enough there. And what I'll do is I'll use my pencil to create a line at the back, so that is our first cut. So fully equipped with masking tape, cardboard, a pencil and scissors. I'll make the cut, and in many cases you could just weld it like that and twist it and probably work fine. I'm going to go a little bit further. So I'm just joining it together with tape, like so, and then I'm putting the cut-off piece in line with the angle cut, and just taping it approximately square. Okay. That is looking about where we want it to be. With the template positioned at the right height, I mark the centre line of the leg on the rear crosspiece and then cut it to size. I then drew a line to mark the other side of the leg on the template and used masking tape to fix the front crosspiece in that position. I then refitted the template against the leg and marked and cut the front crosspiece to size as well. In effect, the mount will end up looking like this. The reason I've done it this way is that there'll be a line of weld there, a line of weld there. Most of the time it'll either want to go, the force will be up, trying to lift this up, and because of the welds it'll be held in place, but it'll also be a bit prone to sideways forces. That's why I've chosen the 6mm thick strap or plate to limit the flex. And the other way is that because it'll be mounted in 2 places directly onto there, it will be that little bit harder to flex away from the frame. With the template finished, I then go about cutting the steel pieces that I will need. I'm cutting both the straight and angle cuts using my dry cut saw, as it produces a neat and accurate cut. Having cut all the pieces to size, I then drill a 12mm diameter hole in one end of the two axle plates. These holes will be used to locate the stub axles that the wheels will run on. I then machined the two stub axles using the lathe. The diameter of the axle is 13mm, but in reality it is half an inch. Australia sources much of its materials from China, and even though items like these are marketed in our metric sizes, they are usually made to the imperial sizes required for the much larger American market, and then repackaged for sale here with the measurements quoted in metric units. The wheels I am using here are a good example of this, as they would have been sold as 150mm diameter with a 13mm axle. They are in fact 6 inches in diameter and take a half-inch axle. But then again, what's a few percent variation between friends? With all the components prepared, it is on to welding up. I have also beveled the edges of the cross brackets where they attach to the axle plate. The stand legs are just under 40mm in diameter, so I have clamped 2 cross brackets to a piece of 40mm by 40mm square hollow section material, and then positioned this on the axle plate to give the correct spacing and alignment. With the brackets welded on, I then position and weld in place the 2 stub axles. Off camera, I have disassembled the wheels, cleaned them up, painted the hubs, and then reassembled them with new nuts and bolts, as well as cleaning and repacking the bearings with new grease. I have also drilled holes in the stub axle ends to fit split pins, which will be used to hold the wheels in place. Having temporarily fitted the wheels to the axles, I have placed packing under the rear of the axle plates to hold them on a level line. I then positioned a straight edge across the back of the legs and then used a square against it to align the wheels to the legs of the stand in preparation for welding. I am using oxy-acetylene gas welding to attach the axle plates to the legs of the stand. I'm tacking the axle plates whilst they are in position before repositioning the legs to a roughly horizontal position to weld them out. There are a couple of reasons I have chosen oxy-acetylene gas welding for this. The first one is the difference in metal size. The difference is significant with the axle plates at 6mm and the leg wall thickness at 1.6mm. It is easy to blow through the thin section in this situation, and I find gas gives a more controllable weld puddle. The second reason is the oxy-acetylene gas welding, as opposed to brazing, does not feature that much on YouTube, and it's always good to show unusual stuff. To make my job a little easier, I have beveled the edge of the axle plate cross members down to about 2 mm. This is to try and match the wall thickness of the stand's legs. The technique here is to direct the bulk of the heat into the axle plate cross members, but still having enough of a weld puddle on the leg side to give a good weld. I could use stick welding, but blow through is a real possibility and hard to repair in thin material. I was going to use TIG, but there's a lot of TIG welding shown on YouTube, so I decided to go for the more unusual oxy-acetylene gas welding. After all, it's all about views. With the welding all done and the area sanded and painted, it's time to fit the wheels back on, bend the split pins out and see how it rolls. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, I'd welcome a thumbs up, and by all means, share it amongst your friends. This channel is about maintaining, making, fixing and restoration projects, and if you like that sort of stuff and you haven't already subscribed, well, please hit that subscribe bar down below. Don't forget to ding the bell so that you're reminded by YouTube whenever a new video comes out. I try to put out a new video every fortnight, so you shouldn't have too long to wait until the next one is released. Also, have you checked us out on Instagram, where we're also White Dog Garage? I try and post there 3 times a week. Often there's a bit of background on a forthcoming video or material that just didn't make it into the video. Once again, thank you.